Hi cuties! Excuse the background. I just had an urge to turn on the camera, which I have not felt that in the past couple weeks. Let me just prop you down here. Hold on a sec. Yeah, so I'm here. I'm alive. We are doing great. I can't believe I'm like this cheery considering that it's week 2 of law school and I was just fully prepared to, still am, fully prepared to suffer and be really overwhelmed. But I think that I started to like brainwash myself into thinking it would be super, super hard. And honestly, I mean, I might change my mind, but it's pretty manageable. Like there's a lot of reading involved, but like I have a PhD in reading. Like I literally spent 8 hours of my day, I mean, interrupted 8 hours, but I'm used to reading for a long period of time because of my bookstore job. So sitting down and reading like 10 cases isn't the end of the world by any means. This is all to say that I'm feeling good. I'm really enjoying my classes. It feels really purposeful. I really enjoyed my undergrad, don't get me wrong, but a lot of what I studied was very theory heavy. And so it's really great and useful when I'm learning about things that have real consequences and seeing how certain principles or certain laws are applied to certain specific situations and seeing the outcomes and the repercussions of said action. So it's just been a very different way of learning and looking at certain situations in the world that has kind of like unlocked a different part of my brain that I'm just like really enjoying that exploration. So yeah, I'm also really happy in my new place. It feels really homey and cozy, and I just feel like I have this warm little cocoon that is really lovely for studying as well as just enjoying the little free time that I have. There's barely any rain here, which is amazing. As for my reading, I'm still chugging along. I'm reading I Love Dick by Kraus. I have had that book on my radar for a really long time. When I was in high school, I would read this magazine called Rookie by Tavi Jevinson. I can't remember her last name, but anyways, I remember I Love Dick, or Kraus specifically, being somebody that she would cite quite often. And since my high school days, I just have that name ingrained in my head, and I, again, just footnoted it and moved on with my life. And then my interest was reawoken when I was reading my first Eileen Miles book, Chelsea Girls, and I watched an interview between Eileen and Chris, and it was just lovely, like just so wonderful. It's obvious that they are very close friends as well as just super smart, academic and interesting people. But I think that their like intimate relation to one another just made their conversation all the more organic and natural and just really awesome. So I'll actually link it downstairs. But anyways, that was also a few months ago that I watched that interview. But then again, slowly Chris came back into consciousness, and then I decided to order the book when I saw that a customer had special ordered it, and I special ordered it too. So let me talk a little bit about it because I think I have about 50-ish pages left. The book is structured in a series of letters that Chris writes to this man that she is just completely enamored with and bordering on like obsession. And he comes into Chris's life through her husband, who is a well-known academic, critic, intellectual, and Dick is the name of Chris's love interest, is a fellow academic / artist. They all have dinner together one night, and that is the blossoming or the conception of how this love and entanglement unfolds through the pages. And these letters are one-sided, oftentimes not delivered to Dick himself. It actually starts as a project between the couple, so between Sylvia and Chris. And I found the whole premise of this book so intriguing and a little bit absurd and grotesque in the best way. I found that the way in which Chris so openly and freely expresses every and any emotion that she feels towards Dick, so liberating. And it doesn't even matter who Dick really is or what his personality is, because at the end of the day, Chris doesn't even know herself. She's projecting all of these emotions and all of these feelings and insecurities onto this blank canvas that is Dick. And she can almost manipulate and write a character or a narrative to suit this kind of like liberating and self-soothing mechanism that she's using through writing these letters. So I just found that so cool, because I myself have certainly had moments where you filter so much of yourself or things that you want to express or insecurities when you like somebody. And having that kind of filter completely removed and having her just literally spew out anything and everything onto this man, just so cool. I don't know, I just found it so refreshing to hear that, and nothing's holding her back. She's just letting it rip, and like I've said 50 times now, just be the most liberating and freeing activity, or a form of like meditation in some way, right? So yeah, I just love the erratic, just totally unabashed, sincere words that were on the page. So yes, that is, I think, the highlight or my biggest takeaway. There's for sure segments of the book that might be a little bit cringy or might make you do a bit of an eye roll, but no book is perfect. I mean, it just also speaks to how human Chris is, and that how flawed individuals are, and how hypocritical we can be, and a bit unaware sometimes of our privileges or our points of view or whatever that might be. But I don't think that those moments take away from the overall experience and the excitement and yeah, just the excitement that I felt every time that I'd pick up that book. So I can totally see it being a very polarizing read, however. So as with anything, just take what I say with a grain of salt, okay? You might not feel the same, and that's perfectly okay. I will not be upset. Like I said, I have 50 pages left. I'm not gonna go into the intricacies of the plot and where Chris and Dick's relationship goes, but yeah, I'm so happy that I own this book and that I read it. There's so many just beautiful, smart, and very funny lines, actually. It's a very humorous, fun read for me. And it's also been really nice because, like I said, some of the things are a little preposterous and just like comical. So it's a nice little escapist window that I open at the end of the day after reading like pretty dense law things. So yeah, that has also been an awesome little kind of side effect. But I wanted to discuss a couple things, and I think the next book that I'm going to pick up, I have two here, and I also want to talk about one other new release that Penguin Random House has sent me. And that is Joshua Whitehead's nonfiction essay collection called Making Love to the Land. Hello, apologies for the background change. I just got a call and decided to move to my desk, and so here we are. But I think I was discussing the exciting new release by Joshua Whitehead, Making Love to the Land. I cannot freaking wait to read that book. I'm just completely in love with the Joshua Whitehead. He is the author of Johnny Appleseed, which I've talked about plenty of times on this channel, and he edited Love After the End, which is another beautiful book. So yes, I'm super excited about that release, and I've already discussed this, but again, just looking forward to getting to this guy, The Rabbit Hutch by Tess Gunty, and Chilean Poet by Alejandro Zambra. So thank you so much, Penguin Random House Canada. I feel so lucky, and it truly feels like Christmas whenever I receive a package with a book. It's just like, makes my heart so full and so warm, and I freaking love it. So anyways, yeah, I think in a little bit I'm going to do a wrap up perhaps of what I read this summer, which wasn't a whole lot, which is okay. I kind of anticipated that would happen with the move and everything else going on in life, but I think I will do a little wrap up, and maybe I'll insert some clips here of my new surroundings so you can experience a little bit of this very cute small town. Maybe we'll vlog this week. Maybe it'll just be like a sporadic one-day vlog because I just really feel in the mood to do this today. I really missed you. I think about all of you often, even if I'm not on here. Please let me know how you've been, what life has looked like recently, and what you've been reading so that I can add it to my TBR and read it next year.
Okay, hi cuties. This is actually going to turn into a traveling reading vlog. It's been a few days since I turned on the camera, and I didn't end up doing a wrap up because, truth be told, I turned off that clip. I went back to my readings, and then I just like completely forgot to sit back down and film my recent reads. So maybe we can do that tomorrow at the airport. I figured I would just continue on, and I think the way that I'm going to just operate my YouTube channel now is just basically pull out the camera when I feel like it and when I have the time to, and just talk to all of you about what's going on, even if it might not make total sense and there might be a bunch of days in between the filming of each clip, but whatever. I hope you can just navigate this with me. But yeah, so actually I'm back in Vancouver just for a night because tomorrow I leave, or Charlie and I leave for Florida because we are celebrating my grandma's 80th birthday, and I'm actually seeing all of my extended family, and I'm just like so over the moon. I'm so excited about it. So I am reading on the go. By reading, I mean like doing my school readings because I'm missing class on Friday. So yeah, you might be thinking, wow, that is one long haul for a woman's birthday, but we just haven't gotten together in a long time because of COVID. Also, my grandmother's health is deteriorating quite quickly. So if I have the opportunity to take some time out of my life to go spend it with my family that means so much to me, I'm just gonna do it. So here we are. It sounds crazy, and it is, but I just feel really lucky that I even have the opportunity to do so, so I'm running with it. So yes. However, I did finish I Love Dick, and It ended on such a good note and kind of how I anticipated that it would end. Like, there is no clean resolution. You are kind of left wondering, and kind of, you can pretty much guess how things are gonna go. But yeah, I really enjoyed that book. It was a really fun reading experience. Like I mentioned already, I'm sure people will find it very cringy and will take issue with the things that are explored in that book and the delivery. But all in all, I think my biggest takeaway is just kind of admiring that unabashed honesty and the liberation that comes from that. I mean, I certainly wished in certain points in life that I could have just been more vocal and expressed myself so fully when it comes to my attraction to other people. I mean, granted, Chris is behaving like a high schooler or like a young person would, and she is experiencing all these feelings and vocalizing all of this when she's like in her 40s or like in her late 30s. So I thought that was kind of sweet and kind of flipping it on its head. But again, like when I was younger, I wish that I could have also just been a bit more vocal and honest, and she just kind of says everything that we wish we could have said. Maybe not everything, because it is obviously bordering on the grotesque and just sharing too much. But I think a takeaway from this is not reach like Kraus crazy level necessarily, but to make space for those feelings that you have and express yourself when you are feeling a type of way and you are feeling everything that comes with infatuation and love and affection for another human being. Though again, I'm not saying like go Kraus level and start writing like 100 love letters to a person that you've only talked to once. Like, that's not what I'm trying to advocate for. But yeah, it was just a fun kind of like character study and project, like artistic project that she essentially sets out to do and accomplishes. And I think she finds herself in that very process. So yeah, really enjoyed myself with that. It did take me way longer than it should have. I think I read it for like 3 weeks, and it's not a very long novel by any means. And now I've just read like 3 pages of Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl. I'm blanking on the name of the author, but I think it's gonna be a romp. I think it's gonna be wild. I think it's gonna be weird, obviously queer. It'll certainly be a kind of escapist, fun thing to read either at the beginning of my day or at the end of the day after I'm done all of my reading for the day. I find that that's the kind of world or reading experience that I'm drawn to as of late, just because it's such a contrast from the hours that I pour into my law reading. So anything that kind of takes me away from my present reality or brings different set of facts, different landscape, different vibe, are all kind of speaking to me right now, and I just feel quite drawn to those stories. So yeah, I think reading that will be really fun as well. Those are all of my personal / reading updates. I'm sure at some point in this video you will hear about what I've read in the last 2 months of summer, but yeah, we're just gonna roll with it. I'll see you soon. Hello, we are back from school and back from Florida, hence my red appearance. I look like a little lobster. Yeah, I wanted to wrap this very messy reading vlog up, but before I read or let you know what I read this summer, which at this point I'm like, who even cares? It's like almost October. It's like spooky season now. But anyways, I just want to document it for my own purposes. But before I do that, I wanted to talk about Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl, because I am 56 pages in. And yes, I've got my Sonny's book truck bookmark, which there has literally never been a better bookmark. I just want to put it out there. CJ, whatever you did, girl, you killed it, because truly there's not a better bookmark out there than this. Like, it is so sturdy. It is so firm, so cute. It just fits perfectly on the book. You could even also use it if you want to do this kind of situation. It's perfect for that too. Like, ugh, adorable. Anyways, back to the content of the book. I went into this kind of blindly. I remember actually CJ speaking about this, but quite vaguely, so I didn't really know exactly what I was getting myself into, which I typically like to do that if I can. I'm really enjoying it. All I knew was that Paul was a shapeshifter. He has the ability to alter his body and modify it as he pleases, but that's pretty much the extent of it. And I also knew it was very queer, which it is. Yeah, we follow Paul. He's like in his early 20s, because I think he's like in first or second year of his undergraduate, living in Iowa City in the 90s. And we basically just follow his sexcapades and navigating this specific moment in time in the 90s. I'm just loving it. It's very raunchy. There's a lot of like explicit sex scenes. It's just wild and super engrossing. I don't want to put it down. Yesterday I actually read most of it, because on the plane I honestly just slept, because I was just completely sleep deprived after my weekend in Florida. So didn't do much reading, but I read pretty much the 50 pages last night, and I just didn't want to stop. It was really compelling. Quite like, I don't want to say simple writing, but not like overly flowery, just very straight to the point, which I think makes it just super easy to consume and just like gobble up. And yeah, it's also like, I don't want to say melancholic, because like no part of me relates to this book. Like, I'm not part of like some cool subculture in the 90s. I'm also not part of the queer community, but there's something kind of nostalgic about this book for some reason. Maybe I'm just the only one that feels this way, but yeah, and I also just find Paul really interesting and funny and just like really smart. I feel like Johnny Appleseed and Paul would get along so great. It's sort of like that same vibe, but Johnny Appleseed being like a lot more like tender and wholesome in some ways, but maybe this will also take me to tender, wholesome land as well, although I doubt it. But I feel like those two characters would get along really well. This might be random, but I was thinking about it because I spoke about Joshua Whitehead's latest work, and I just got it in the mail, so I got excited, and then I started thinking about Johnny Appleseed, and then I was like, wait, these two characters are kind of not in conversation with one another, but I feel like they would get along really great. So anyway, yeah, really enjoying it. Pick it up if you want something different, crazy, and super queer. I feel like you're gonna vibe with this quite a bit. Okay, now we can officially move on to my summer reads and just like close off that chapter in time. So let's start with July, and I'm gonna try and mimic my bestie Ben, because he did like a rapid fire wrap up and I liked it, so I'm gonna do the same. Okay, the first book I read was No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood, my queen. She could really do no wrong. I just love her. I loved that book. I did a whole reading vlog about that book, so if you want to hear my thoughts on it some more, check that out. Then I read something completely different. I read Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor. Such a powerful read. Holy shit. I don't think a book has ever made such an impression on me in terms of the tone and vibe and just like mood that book put me in. Like, it is so striking. It's super profane. It's written in this like spellbinding way that you feel like you're in this nightmare with these characters, but such a good read, just like pretty heavy. We follow a cast of characters in a small isolated town in Mexico, and it's sort of a murder mystery, but a lot more than just that. But yeah, super strong, super striking. Literally will never forget that book and how it made me feel. Then I read Pure Color by Sheila Heti. Freaking loved it. I also did a whole reading vlog about it. Thought I'd hate it. Surprised us all by confessing my love for everything that was said and philosophized in that book. 10 out of 10. Then I read Red Doc, which was the sequel to Autobiography of Red by Anne Carson. That I feel like that book might be in like my top favorite books ever. I don't know what it is. I still think about that book constantly. So it was really lovely to dip back into Garion's world and just like the beauty that is Anne Carson. I enjoyed it. Autobiography of Red still remains like untouched. It's just perfect. Then I read Story of a New Name by Elena Ferrante. What a freaking romp. I said it before and I'll say it again, but it's just like the perfect Italian telenovela. Just so much fun. Then I read Noopiming by Leanne, Betasamosake, Simpson. Incredible. Oh, that book is just like a warm hug. I just loved everything that book represented, the ideas that were sparked up while I was reading it, the gorgeous prose. It was just an absolute little like warm tea or just like medicine for the soul. It's just stunning, and I still think about that book. Then I read A Feather on the Breath of God by another Bay, Sigrid Nunez. Beautiful story, very different take on the like classic immigration story. She also can do no wrong. I love that author. Will read everything and anything that she ever writes. And then I read A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid, which was an author that had been on my list for quite a while. And this summer I bought a couple of her books and I really enjoyed it. It's a small little, think of it as like a long essay. It's nonfiction and it talks about the colonial history and how that has largely informed and shaped the island that she calls her hometown of Antigua. So it was super informative. I truly did not know anything about that island. So very informative, really strong. And it was just a really lovely introduction to Jamaica Kincaid. And I actually have Annie, I believe, is the other one that I have. Annie John, and I look forward to reading more of her work. Then for August, I read Lote, super unique, really weird, really rich language, probably like the richest, most decadent book I've ever read. Again, very particular in its prose and also just like the feelings that it evokes while you're reading it. And then I read Split Tooth, which was another Indigenous recommendation from a lovely customer of mine, and it was a beautiful coming of age story of a young gal living in Nunavut, which was just really beautiful and heartwarming, and yeah, loved it. Also unique way of storytelling. I again speak of that book in more depth and do it justice in my Indigenous like book recommendation video, but I just love that book too. Then I read Trust by Hernan Diaz, and that was also really experimental in its form. Clearly that's a theme that I've just really gravitated towards recently, just like what is a novel, what can it look like, how does the specific form influence our reading experiences and evoke specific feelings within us. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It read like a movie to me. I just saw the specific not chapters, but the specific novels within that novel to be like its own distinct little movie within a movie. I don't know, it was just very cinematic, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that each of the books within that book read like specific scenes in a movie. That's better. That's a more eloquent way of saying what I mean. But yeah, I also just really admire Hernan Diaz through Jalen's podcast. He did an interview with him, and that's really what sold me on buying the book. And I will link it downstairs. Jalen,
I love your podcast. It's just the best thing to put on while I walk to school. So thank you for just enlightening us and for these really just thought-provoking and really considered interviews with all these great authors. So anyway, yeah, so thanks to Jalen for influencing me even more to get dressed. Then I read The Opposite House by Helen Oyeyemi, which TBH was a little bit of a disappointment. Really wanted more from that book, but it just didn't live up to the really like high expectations that I had imposed on the book, which is partly my fault, but yeah, it just wasn't great. And yeah, so far all I've read in September is I Love Dick and now Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl. Like I said before, I hope that I can integrate pleasure reading more into my daily routine, just because this was the first month of getting into my new life. It was a bit tricky to juggle at the beginning just because I had other things on my plate, like getting to know my new classmates and organizing my space, obviously doing my school readings and things like that. But I feel like I have a bit of a firmer grasp on things, so hopefully we'll be seeing each other more and reading a lot more for fun, as it just like brings me so much joy, like I've said a million times, and I don't want to let that go because it's just an important part of my life and it does wonders for my mental health. So yeah, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this reading vlog. I love all of you lovely people. Thank you for just watching me. And yeah, we'll see each other soon, and I'll leave you with this. Bye.